Welcome, Bill Cheswick. Bill Cheswick, also known as Ches, is known for his early work in internet security, including firewalls, proxies, and as co-author of the first full book on firewalls. He's also noted for his work in visualizations, especially internet maps, which have appeared widely. Ches has worked at Bell Labs and AT&T Shannon Lab and was co-founder of Lumeta Corp. He continues to invent, collaborate, write apps, consult, and give talks worldwide. He's a visiting scholar at University of Pennsylvania, and Bill is also on the board of the Mentor Project and is a really amazing mentor with the Mentor Project, going into many, many schools. So welcome, Bill. You have an amazing background. Can you tell
Thank you, Debbie.
Tell me a little bit about all of the things that you've done.
Well, I got to Bell Labs in the late 80s, and I'd figured in the mid 80s that the internet was the wave of the future and I should learn a little something about it. So one of the deals with Bell Labs is they give you freedom to do what you want, and they hope you're going to do something useful. And I signed on to become postmaster and to run a firewall that Dave Prezzato had set up previously. And I took all those tasks over. They're not especially welcome jobs because if you get it wrong, everyone's angry with you. And if you get it right, nobody notices you're there. But it was a great way to learn how to do email and all the internet security issues and learn all this stuff. Dave Prezzato ended up being a mentor for me, very much so. I was there a year when the Morris Worm came out, and our firewall stopped it. And part of that was stuff I had done to it, and part of it was Dave's original design.
Wow. So did you go to school to learn all of this?
Oh no, good. When I went to college back in the early 1970s, none of this stuff was around. The work I did was all in a new area, which was partly intentional, right? I mean, in 1968, I walked into a classroom at school and saw a computer terminal at the corner, and I said, computers are the wave of the future. I should learn a little more about them. And ended up getting the programming bug in spades within a few weeks.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So you saw that back then and jumped on the bandwagon.
Yeah, it was not especially deep observation. It was clear to everybody in the late 60s that computers were the wave of the future. I just happened to grab onto it.
So what was your education in? What did you
if you asked me at age 12 what I was going to be when I grew up, the answer would have been chemist. And I had already done a whole bunch of chemistry at home, including some fairly dangerous things. Don't try this at home, kids, but I did. But I was very careful with safety and so on, and did not blow up anyone or poison anyone or blow off any fingers. And I was deep into chemistry and majored in chemistry when I entered Lehigh in 1970. But within a year or so, I realized I was spending all my time at the computing center and none of my time in the chemistry lab. And so I decided I was trying to tell myself something and switched over to computers.
Oh, that's great. So when you were a kid, did you sort of tinker around with things? Did you know that you sort of you had a proclivity toward chemistry, but did you have any idea that you wanted to invent things or make big changes in?
No, I had no idea about inventing. A lot of my career was completely unanticipated. What got me started was Sputnik, which was I was in about second grade in Sputnik when Sputnik went up, and there was a giant rage that ran through the country saying, "Oh my God, we're behind in science. We need to do more science." And I got caught up in that, and I knew. I mean, I wouldn't have used these terms when I was in third grade, but I knew I wanted to be a science guy. All this science stuff was fascinating. And, my mom got me chemistry sets and microscopes, and I really, and a fellow in our neighborhood gave me a college chemistry book. That was a big mistake because I read it to cover and I loved it. and I was totally hooked on science. In sixth grade, my report card said, Bill probably knows more science than his science teacher. And this is not in a bad school system. I was proud as hell of that comment. Looking back, though, I'm quite disappointed because really you should be feeding people when possible. And that actually gets me into some of the thoughts of the Mentor Project, which we will get to, I'm sure. So yeah, I've been a science guy all my life. I constantly am reading everything about oncology, cosmology, astronomy, geology, biology, virology, you name it. I read many hours a day of this kind of stuff.
Did you have any specific mentors when you were younger or throughout your career?
Well, there were specific teachers who encouraged me, and I salute them from the reaching into the past. You know, there was Mr. Lucas in 5th grade, and there was Mr. Doherty in 8th grade, and Mr. Plotnick in 9th grade. You know, there were teachers who recognized my interest and helped feed it. But I was very much an autodidact. I went out and learned on my own. Instead of being a good student and doing all my homework dutifully, I would be reading other stuff. And so my grades through the school years were never that stellar, but I was always doing stuff on the side and with these external interests.
Well, you know, one of the reasons for starting the Mentor Project, one of the main reasons for bringing STEM into schools is because of you. You had said to me at one point, we need to get old farts like myself into the schools to teach kids science. And
yes.
You have to do that for free and start with 2nd graders.
Yeah.
Why 2nd graders?
Well, so I've had an amazing life, far more amazing than I would have guessed when I was in 2nd grade. And part of the amazingness was all the astonishing people I've met and have become friends with and have chatted with as recently as a few days ago. And when I meet a grown-up, I ask them what they wanted to be when they grew up, because it's almost never what they're doing now. Of course, they had no idea. And this is one of the messages I have for the kids is when people ask you that question, you ask them back what they wanted to be. And I have found that Nobel Prize winners and researchers and experimentalists of all sorts largely got interested in science around 8, 9, 10 years old, which is about when I did. And I figured what I want to do, I've now hung out with 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade teachers. They are astonishing people. I don't know how they do it. I think after a day of some of the yelling and screaming that goes on there, I think they probably should go home or do go home to some quiet room where they close the door and put on some Bach and have some white wine and just sort of calm down. But they love it. But these people, and most of them are women, are not strong in technology. They've never gotten deep into it. And there are a lot of us old Cold Warrior, older guys who have worked in factories and laboratories and so on, who know a great deal of technical detail. And I've always had a bent for teaching and explaining difficult things. So I put myself to the task of a problem such as, can I teach quantum mechanics to a 2nd grader? By the way, the answer so far is no. That one's too hard. But I have been able to come up with some topics that I can reach a 2nd, 3rd, 4th grader, and by the way, those are very different grades, I've learned. I can reach out and show them actual technical stuff that they can look for and understand on how rockets work or what inventing is like. And I have a variety of other topics that I've thought about to try to give them that start that they will actually learn something, not just get interested, but actually learn for stuff, some cool details, and may start on their own way towards learning this stuff and, maybe getting a Nobel Prize in 20 years.
You know, you have been the inspiration, obviously, for starting the Mentor Project. And you have actually been in front of probably a few hundred kids by now in several different school locations. What do you think about the experience? What are you getting out of it?
Oh, it's magnificent. And you make it sound a little scattered, but Let me point out one of the points I have. I go to a few conferences through the year where I see various people. For example, there's a physics Nobel Prize winner is a friend of mine at the weekend I just went to a few days ago. I save up questions for him through the year. It might be May, and I say, ooh, that's a really interesting deep physics question. I wonder what the answer is. I will put it on a list and ask him. And so part of my thought for these schools is not that you just go and give an assembly and then go away, but you come back on a regular basis and form some relationships with the kids so that they can say next time, ooh, that was cool, I have more questions. So there's one school I've been to a number of times, and I'm getting to know the kids and they're getting to know me, and we're getting this feedback, which I find is cool. Also, I think one of the best parts about this, and I've had this both as a parent and now as the teaching, is when one kid in the class, I say something and the kid says, cool. That basically makes the whole trip worthwhile because they have gotten some topic. The last cool I got was on some detail of topology that is a college level concept that the kid got. And it was partly because I presented it pretty easily. He did not know it's a college level concept, but I think I really like to try to stretch them, and the people who invite me approve of it. I'm not meeting in their curriculum exactly or at all. I'm just trying to just give the kids some idea of stuff beyond what they're getting from grade school.
Yeah, I've been in the room and I've actually witnessed it where the kids actually run up out of their chairs and run up to you to comment on the screen, and you really are inspiring. I'm so thrilled to have you on board, not only on the board, but as a mentor. You are able to answer questions for kids. You're able to be there virtually for kids. You get in your Tesla and you go to schools that are so far away from where you live, and the kids and teachers just resonate with everything you're talking about. So I really wanted to ask you finally, what kind of advice do you have for kids, but also for parents? Do you have any advice for anyone?
Oh, let's see. Well, for the kids, and in fact, I'm preparing this for an assembly in a week or so. For the kids, one of the important things, especially if junior high and so on, is the issue of what do you want to be when you grow up? And the answer is kids can't know the answer to that. Most of them can't. There are a few who say, I want to be a vet, and they grow up and they become a veterinarian or a doctor or something like that. Most of them have no idea what they're going to be, and they don't have enough information about what they're going to be. I once saw a study that estimated there are 150,000 different kinds of jobs in the world. And so when the aunt visits and asks you what you want to be when you grow up, the answer is, I'm not sure, but maybe it's outside or it's at a desk, or, you can do general answers, but they should be asking other people, what did you want to be when you grow up? And I think that's maybe one of the most important messages I have for them, because they have no idea, especially if they end up in sciences and research, no idea what the world's going to be like when they actually get into the job market.
That is good advice, because you're right. I bet if everyone listening to this thought back to what they wanted to be when they grew up, it might not be exactly what they thought, and might be vastly different.
It is vastly different. And it's important not just to ask Nobel Prize winners. I asked the lady in the doctor's office who's an expert on medical codes what she wanted to be when she grew up. And their stories are always, they have random elements and things. Some friend offered me a job, or I went in with another friend and they hired me instead of her, and that sort of stuff. These stories are fascinating and varied across everyone. I love asking this question.
Well, Bill, it's been such a pleasure having you on. And again, we're thrilled to have you with the Mentor Project. And if anyone has any questions for Bill, you can go to Ask a Mentor on the Mentor Project website, and you can check out his Firewalls book. And I'm sure there's got to be a picture of the internet map that you have out there somewhere. So at any rate, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you, Debbie.